to be here, and God is just, it amazes me sometimes when I take a big picture look back at what he's doing, and not only in my life, but in the lives of the people around us, and that is probably one of my favorite songs just because he is so good. So we're heading into 1 Samuel chapter 22 today, so if you want to get heads up started that way, that's where we're going to go. But before we get there, have you ever been consumed by something, right? Now, there's good things that you could be consumed by or bad things. Like positively, well, it would depend on who you're asking. For me, so Bobby one time said, hey, Nick, you need to watch this show. It was called Forged with Fire. Anybody ever seen it? So, yeah, so cool. So here's what they do. It's a competition where 4 guys are in a blacksmith shop, and they've got to, in 3 hours, forge a blade and then, present it to BC, what's good. So I'm obsessed with this show so much that my children are watching it with me now. We've watched every episode now of the show. And I get consumed by these things that, the next thing that happens is I start looking up how much a forge would cost. And then I start thinking, man, my wife has really good brains on my being consumed with things. But it's funny how you go there. You start YouTubing things I wonder if. And so I know what the process would look like to start off in this thing, which is nowhere near. But I get consumed with that, or even this. I started doing woodworking here in the last 6 months or so, and I have a friend, some of you know Rob, and Rob's like, hey, Nick, I want to show you something. And so he kind of feeds my habit a little bit, and which is good and bad depending upon who you're talking to. And Rob's like, hey, I got these shops I want to show you to. So he took me to Smith & Edwards, which is up there. That's like a giant place of just tons of stuff, not really expensive. That's my kind of place, right? Anywhere from tools to candy, which is the perfect blend of things you could want, tools and candy, to military stuff. It was amazing. And then he takes me to the Habitat for Humanity store and shows me how cheap I could find, wood. And I'm like, man, Rob, you're killing me. He's like, no, man, I'm just helping you out. No, you're not helping me at all because I'm consumed with these things. I start running through my head, man, I need to go buy this. I need to go buy this. None of those things are being bought. But, I get consumed. On the flip of that, though, we get consumed with things like our emotions. I was a youth pastor for a very long time, so I watched people get, they really love each other and relationships, and they get so consumed it clouds their judgment sometimes. Even us adults get in that place sometimes, where all we can think about is that person, and we're just consumed by it. And what I mean consumed is our thoughts go nowhere else but this one thing, whatever it is. Now, a negative, too, you might have someone that's done you wrong. I've seen this so many times, right? They've done you wrong, and they will not let it go. Doesn't matter how sincerely sorry you are, how wrong you were in it, they are just going to hang on. They are consumed by this thing. Now, the danger with being consumed by anything is it leaves no room for other things. Now, we know this too. The only thing we should be consumed with is our love for Christ. And oftentimes we call those things idols. I would honestly say sometimes my love for Forged with Fire has gone to an unhealthy place. And we have to be careful when we get so focused on a thought and a feeling and an emotion or a thing that it leaves no room for anything else. And that's kind of where we're going to see today in 1 Samuel chapter 22 with Saul. Taking this to the next step. So before we read this, I want to give you a backtrack. Last week, a couple weeks ago, David wasn't really sure if Saul was really happy with him. And so he and Jonathan concocted a plan to determine whether or not Saul really wanted to harm David or not, and the plan proved to be true. Saul wants David dead, so David flees. So last week he flees to the priest Ahimelech, and he seeks asylum with him, and Ahimelech gives him some food. If you remember, he gives him the sword of Goliath. David gets some things there, and then David flees from there because he sees Doeg, who works for Saul. Doeg is Saul's chief herdsman, scares him, so he leaves, and he goes to his enemy, the king Achish of Gath, right? He goes there, and remember this story, right? David was scared that Achish wanted to kill him, so he acted like a crazy person, and then flees again. And so this is kind of where we see what happens next in the story. And we're talking about David and Saul this morning. So if you have your Bibles and you got 1 Samuel chapter 22 up, here we go. Verse 1, David departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. And everyone who was in distress, and everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was bitter in soul gathered to him, and he became commander over them. And there were with him about 400 men. And David went from there to Mizpah of Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, please let my father and my mother stay with you, till I know what God will do for me. And he left them with the king of Moab, and they stayed with him all the time that David was in the stronghold. Then the prophet Gad said to David, do not remain in the stronghold, depart and go into the land of Judah. So David departed and went into the forest of Hereth. Now Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men who were with him, Actually, I'm going to pause there. We're going to get to that part. Let's just start with the very beginning here. David, we see, is going to protect his family before we get too excited here. David's family hears what's going on, and so David, he flees over and departs to the cave of Adullam. His family hears what's going on, and they're not foolish either. They're probably worried that Saul's anger might even flood over to him. I don't know that for sure, but they decide they're going to meet up with David as well. So they all kind of come together, and they escape to the cave of Adullam, which is, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe about 12 miles east of Gath. I could be wrong on that, but that's how far off it is. And at this point, David's motives fleeing are about safety. Like, he's trying to keep himself alive. He's not trying to attack. Now, Saul is the king of Israel. If you remember correctly, David was anointed to become the king of Israel. At this point, he's not even trying to take over the throne, although having the former king trying to kill you could give you good motives. It could. It could put you in the right perspective frame of mind and say, you know what, I'm just going to finish this off. Let's go take care of this so that way I can do what God's called me to do. But no, David's trying to be focused on safety right now. He's getting away, and he goes to the caves. As a matter of fact, in Psalms 142, I'm going to read this real quick for you. I have it right now here. David's singing the song, talking about how God is bringing him out of his suffering. And a lot of times the Psalms are reflections of what's happening in David's life. In Psalm verse 1, with my voice I cry out to the Lord, with my voice I plead for mercy to the Lord. I pour out my complaint before him, I tell my trouble before him. When my spirit faints within me, you know my way. In the path where I am weak, you have hidden a trap for me. Look to the right and see, there is none who takes notice of me. No refuge remains to me, no one cares for my soul. I cry to you, O Lord. I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Attend to my cry, for I am brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are so strong to me. Bring me out of prison, that I may give thanks to your name. The righteous will surround me, for you will deal bountifully with me. And they say that he wrote this in the caves. So David's heart isn't kill Saul. He's like, Lord, protect me. Lord, keep me safe. Lord, I want to honor you with this. At this point, David's motives are in the right place. He's crying out to God that God will just really surround him and take care of him in this moment. So his whole family, that's a new word, comes out, again, possibly out of concern for Saul's vindictiveness, and they meet up with him. And but not only his family shows up, a ragtag group of people who are in debt, who are distressed, who are malcontent, and things much like that decide to join up with David too. So what happens is that a lot of people are hearing this is happening. They're hearing David's there, and they're like, you know what? I'm going to go there as well because I don't feel safe or comfortable in this situation either. And so all these people start merging upon where David is. So he now kind of has an army, which I think David puts this together. Now I say the word think because I don't have any proof that this is where it's going on, but this is more of a, they're here together. Someone's got to lead them, so he's that guy. But also, let's protect each other here. Let's keep each other safe. And he wins them over, and so he's got about 400 men in his service. And now their plans are not to go assault and attack Saul. They're just trying to keep themselves together in this moment. So then the next verse, 3 through 4, David prepares for his family. So it says here, and David went there from Mizpah to Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, please let my father and mother stay with you till I know what God will do for me. Well, here's something interesting if you've never read the book of Ruth. Ruth is David's great-grandmother, or great-great-grandmother. And so she was a Moabite, and it's kind of funny when you read these things just to remember these pieces and how they fit together. Now, the scripture doesn't talk about that relationship here, but it's possible that David thought maybe that could be helpful. It doesn't say that. We don't know that. It's possible that that's the direction he's leaning. You know, he knows that his great-grandmother was from this tribe. Maybe they'll find favor. We don't know that. What I do love, though, is if you're reading Scripture and you start seeing how uncoincidentally God is lining these pieces up for David and his people to continue to glorify God in this. Like, it's not a coincidence that his far distant relative happens to be from this tribe. And so we talk about, Ruth being there. So David goes before to the king. He says, listen, can you please keep my family safe? Because he knows that's no place for a family to be, right? Especially if you're, and remember, David is a warrior. David's not a car salesman. He's not a passive guy. Like David, in his blood, he's wired to be a warrior. So that's not a lifestyle you want your family around, that you go off to war, you come home to your family. So he needs them safe. He wants them protected. So, again, we don't know what the relationship was. Scripture doesn't give us an indication either way. And it's possibly both the king of Moab recognizes the relationship or vice versa. We don't know that. But I think it's just really interesting that that was the connection there. So David prepares for his family. And then in verse 5, he begins his journey. And it's here where we see David head out and beginning this process. We see the passing reference to also in verse 5 of a priest. Now, let me read this to you. Then the prophet Gad said to David, do not remain in the stronghold. Depart and go into the land of Judah. So David departed and went into the forest of Hereth. This is the only time we're going to see this guy. It's a very small verse. And oftentimes we can pass it over and think nothing much of it, but here's a really clear indication that God is still speaking through his prophet, giving David direction. Like, it's important to understand that God is still working in David's life right here. He says, hey, you need to go. You need to move over here. David's listening to him. Now, in this moment, I don't know about you. If I'm in a moment of stress, listening to people is a hard thing to do because you're trying to protect and scramble and take care of things. So I'm going to reference this just because I know half of the people in this room have seen this. My wife watches the show This Is Us, right? And how many of y'all cried last week? Yeah, some of the men can, yeah, that's right. That's all right. It's okay, man. And this doesn't give anything away. If it does, I don't think it does. But there's a fire in a home. I think everyone knew that was coming. And it's interesting that the husband tries to gather things, right? He's scrambling to get things for the family on the way out. And which he succeeds to do some things, right? He's going in, like he's not thinking clearly, because honestly what should happen is everyone should get out of Dodge, right? Burning home, it's dangerous, you should move. But instead, what we want to do sometimes is we try to think through the processes in those times. And we're like, oh, I need a photo album. Oh, I need this and this and this. And where the danger is all around you, you just need to get out, because everything's replaceable except for people, right? And so that made me think of this story. Like we oftentimes are not willing to listen to reason or the right things until God brings the right people in our past. And so here the prophet Gad's like, hey, you need to go. And so David hears him. He takes off, departed and went from there to the forest of Hereth. So then we move into this next part where we're going to talk about Saul's irrational fear. Verse 6. Now Saul heard that David was discovered and the men who were with him. Saul was sitting at Gibeah under the tamarisk tree on the height of his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing about him. And Saul said to his servants who stood about him, hear now, people of Benjamin, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards? Will he make you all commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds? That all of you have conspired against me, or that all of you have conspired against me? No one discloses to me when my son makes a covenant with the son of Jesse. None of you is sorry for me or discloses to me that my son has stirred up my servant against me to lie in wait, as at this day. Then answered Doeg the Edomite, who stood by the servants of Saul, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech the son of Ahitub, and he inquired of the Lord for him and gave him provisions and gave him the sword of Goliath, the Philistine. Then the king sent to summon Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all of his father's house. The priests who were at Nob, and all of them came to the king. And Saul said, hear now, son of Ahitub. And he answered, here I am, Lord. And Saul said to him, why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, in that you have given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of God for him, so that he has risen against me to lie in wait, as at this day? Then Ahimelech answered the king, and who among all your servants is so faithful as David, who is the king's son-in-law and captain over your bodyguard, and honor in your house? Is today the first time that I've inquired of God for him? No, let not the king impute anything to his servant, or to all of the house of my father, for your servant was known nothing of all this, much more or little. And the king said, you shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's house. And the king said to the guard who stood about him, turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because their hand is also with David. And they knew that he fled and did not disclose it to me. But the servants of the king would not put it in their hand to strike the priests of the Lord. Then the king said to Doeg, you turn and strike the priest. And Doeg the Edomite turned and struck down the priests, and he killed on that day 85 persons who wore the linen ephod, and Nob, the city of the priests. He would put to the sword both men and women, child and infant, axe, donkey, sheep, he put to the sword. There's still a little bit more, but I'm going to pause here and kind of explain what we're seeing here. So this is talking about Saul's irrational fear. Now, have y'all had an irrational fear before? Something that is really not there, but we're going to make it a thing. What I love in my home is spiders seem to be the thing that can consume fear in everyone in my house. I mean, my kids will scream as if like someone has entered the home to harm them, running, "Dad, there's a spider." I'm like, "Okay, we'll kill it." I'm like, "You have a shoe, let's do this." And so irrational fears, now that's such a small thing compared to what we're seeing here. Saul literally has no reason at this point to want to kill David. David has not tried to pursue the throne. David has not tried to fight back. David is not doing anything to Saul, but Saul keeps conspiring in his head that there's something happening here, and he's panicked, right? And so if we see early on in 1 Samuel, Saul has how many times now tried to kill David? We don't have the number. It's so many. He's thrown a spear at him so many times. He's tried to send him out to battle. Hopefully that will kill him. That doesn't happen. Saul is really determined that David is the reason why he's not content. He's just consumed with this idea that it is David that is causing all his conflict. Now here's a danger for us. When we assume that the reason why we're struggling with things has anything to do with anyone else. That's a dangerous place to be. When you start assuming that the reason why you're unhappy is because of what other people are doing, is because you don't have the proper perspective of what's in front of you. Because here's the thing, following God is not about other people. It's about you and him. It's about what he is doing in your life. And when we start forgetting that piece, and because people are going to do things to you that are wrong, they're going to hurt you. Even I am going to hurt you sometimes unintentionally. I don't mean to. Maybe some of the times it will be intentional. I don't know. But it depends on who we're talking about. And that's wrong. I'm just saying I'm flesh in that. That's what I mean. But we consume ourselves with this idea that other people are the results of our unhappiness. So Saul's unhappy because of other people, which we know is not true. We're going to talk a little bit later about really what's the root of Saul's problem here. But he's got this irrational fear. So Saul he's getting together. He's sitting down under this tree, and he's just processing how awful his life is right now, and just how bad it is that David's alive, and that his son has conspired against him. And he's like, okay, distrust is just seeping out of every part of his body. I mean, it's just becoming a part of him completely. He's consumed by it. So he hears rumor. I love this part, right? Hear rumor. Have y'all ever heard rumors before? I just came from a small town, and literally things can spread in a matter of seconds. And I'm not exaggerating with that. This isn't a bad one, but like Jenny and I moved into town 9 years. No, I don't know how long ago it was. And the second day we're there, a lady comes up to me. She's like, "Oh, are you the new pastor in town?" I'm like, yeah. How could you tell? Well, I'd never seen you, so I just assumed you're the new guy. And I'm like, that's how small this town is. Like, they know who's not from there. And when something is said, a rumor can spread quickly. Hey, did you hear so-and-so's getting a divorce? Oh, hey, did you hear? And you don't even have to be trying to hear. It's going to happen. Like, you walk into, now in this town, there's 3 morning spots. There is Hardee's, there is Bojangles, which is amazing, and there is this old diner place that is, anyway, there's a group of men that would sit at each one of those spots, and that's what they would do all morning, is they would talk over the latest gossip of what's happening, right? And what would happen, though, in that, and you could see it some relationships are going to be ruined and crushed by what people hear in those settings. Because people are going to hear things that aren't true, and they're going to run with it, right? And so they're here. I mean, it happened all the time. Now, there are some good things that happen there, too, like Cajun Filet Biscuit and different things like that. But this gossip is just being spread over the whole community, and it's infectious, so much that people don't even realize it's gossip. You could even say in church, "Hey, guys, we need to stop gossip." What are you talking about? We don't do that. And so Saul hears this rumor that David is he went to see the priest, right? And he discovers that possibly he wants to know like how that happened, where he's at. So he brings all his leaders together. And he's sitting there, and I think there's no coincidence that Saul's trying to show intimidation here. He's a little frustrated. He's sitting there with his spear, and he's like demanding, wants to know where he is. He's like, "Hey, I've heard this. someone needs to start talking. Where's David? You know this is my enemy. You know I want him dead. You know that is a part of what we're doing right now. I want to know now. And so, yeah, it's not necessarily what he says, but that's the sense that we're getting here. And Saul believes that David, honestly, he's believing in his mind that David is waiting to kill him. That's that false part there. Like, he believes that David's purpose and intent is to end his life, which we know is the farthest from the truth. Now, do you know the best way to dispel those gossip and rumors is to only believe what you know to be true? Now, if you only base things off of what you know to be true, that would save you so much time and energy. So when you move into a new area, this happened to me so many times, I would go into the town and the people want to tell me about everybody else. Like, oh, such and such, such. I'm like, hold on. I want to learn about them on my own because the relationship that I'm going to have is not going to be the same one as you. Like, I think Daniel, Bobby, and I are all pretty decent guys, and all three of us have different takes in relationships with people. Like, we all have a different approach that some people respond to better than others. And it's not because any one of us aren't good people. It's just what we're not. But it's one of those things that it doesn't matter. You learn for yourself who someone is on your own. You know what truth is by what you see in front of you. So, like, for instance, my children, right? I don't want, now if someone comes up to me and tells me that they've done something, I'm going to investigate. And I do want to find out. But I'm also going to believe what I already know to be about their character. And I already going to believe what I know. Now, that doesn't mean, like, my wife's an educator, so we go about this. I believe the teacher first, just so everyone knows, because the teachers don't tend to want to harm my children. They're trying to help them. And I have kids that kind of like pushing buttons, so I get it. You know, I know that of my children, right? I know that it's possible that they could have done that. I'm not saying which ones, but I know that they could do that. It's a realistic option that I'm going to believe. Yes, they're good kids. They are good kids. But, I believe she could have done that. It's possible. I believe that, yeah. And we go, and so Saul is going off of things he doesn't know. And he also is concerned that David was incited by Jonathan to set this ambush. He's like, not only do I think David's trying to kill me, I think Jonathan's putting him up to this. Saul's just creating this whole scenario. Jonathan, we know in this book here, his only motive was to protect his friend. He wasn't trying to overthrow his dad. He wasn't trying to take the kingdom from him. He wasn't trying to end his life. He just wanted David to live. If you remember early on in Samuel, those two, they're brothers. They love each other. And that's his motives. But he is irrationally thinking now, Saul, and he's thinking these things are happening between David and his son. And so he gets all his guys together. And Saul's blind rage is causing him to believe all these made-up truths. Because he's so consumed with this thought that someone else, he's going to fight for what he thinks is right, that he's believing all this nonsense around him. And so Saul did get the information that he wanted because no one really had anything. I'm just picturing everyone kind of like, I don't know. But Doeg's like, oh, hey, I know who this cat is. He went to go see Ahimelech. I happened to be there that day. Doeg shares it with him. From this last chapter, we saw that. And it's funny, when you read Scripture, it was only a sentence, right, that mentioned Doeg, but here it comes playing out later on. It's not coincidental that these pieces are in here. And so Doeg filled him in on David's last whereabouts. But here's something that Doeg does not do. If you remember last week, David lied to Ahimelech, said that he was coming on the king's behalf, right? Ahimelech is responding in good faith here. He didn't really know the scene and the scenario. But Doeg doesn't tell Saul that. He's like, yeah, he came and Doeg helped him out. He doesn't give an opportunity to write this guy's life either. You know, I heard it. He was being told a lie. He said he didn't tell him any of those things. Instead, he's sharing with him, yeah, this is where the guy was. And if Doeg would have done that, it's very possible that Ahimelech might have received mercy from Saul. Don't know that, but there's a chance that could have happened. But that's not how the story plays out. So Saul gets this information. And he summons Ahimelech the priest and his family to come to him, where Saul begins to question Ahimelech and wonders why he would have deceived him. You notice in Saul's tone here, everything is like, even when he talked to his guys, he said, when he's talking to the priests and the guards and stuff, here now, people of Benjamin, will the son of Jesse give every one of you the fields and vineyards? Will he make you all commanders? That all of you have conspired against me? Like he's questioning everyone. You all have done this? No one discloses to me when my son is making a covenant. He's whining right now. He's like, all this is happening and no one is talking to me about it. Like I'm the one guy left out. Like, that's the tone I'm hearing. Now, I know it's a lot serious, but we do that a lot, right, when we don't get information. Saul's like, everyone's against me. No one loves me. That's what I'm hearing. Now, I'm not trying to apply that scenario to us, but that mentality of whining that we don't understand things is applicable, right? Now, Saul's situation is a lot different than what we were in, but this guy is just not believing that anyone's on his side right now. Trusted advisors, trusted leaders. He thinks everyone's trying to, because of what Jonathan did, everyone's trying to conspire against him. And so he asks Ahimelech the priest to come to him, and he starts questioning what's going on. And if you remember, David told Ahimelech that he was sent by the king. So Ahimelech was acting only on the information he had. Now, wouldn't, if you were a priest, the king's servant comes to you in need because you also want to serve the king, you're going to take care of that need, regardless of you have all the truth or not. He's trying to be faithful to this. He didn't know that there was any deception going on. Ahimelech is just trying to do the right thing. And so Saul's rage is causing him to accuse everyone of being against him. Now, here's the thing. This blind rage is such... now, I don't know a whole lot about horse racing, but I do get the premise of those little things they put on the side of each horse because their eyes are over here. And they do that so that when a horse goes off, all they see is right in front of them, right? And so that way they don't notice all the action on the left and all the right. They can focus on what's ahead. Now, here's the problem. When we get so consumed, that's the way we work. We don't notice what we're dispelling across the way to the right and to the left. If you notice reading in Samuel, Saul was destroying his daughter's life. He's destroying his son's life. There's aftermath that's happening here, even before this, that he is just so consumed it doesn't matter to him. When we get so consumed by what our heart tells us we want to do, and this anger and rage, we destroy everything around us and we don't even notice it. We didn't see it happen. Next thing we know, we look back and there's nothing left. Like, what happened? Because he is so zeroed in on killing David, it didn't matter to him about what his son feels. It doesn't matter to him about what his daughter feels. It doesn't matter to him about what his priests are doing. All he cares about is this one thing, and we're watching this unfold in front of him, and this mess just falling apart. I've sat in meetings with Christian people who they're so angry about something that they can't talk with reason at all. They're so angry they want to physically harm you. I've seen that. I'm like, what is going on here? Because their blinders are only thinking about what has been wronged by them, not about the bigger picture. Now, don't get me wrong. It hurts to be wronged. I get it. It's a painful thing to walk through. It's difficult, but there is a way that we can overcome that, and that's through Jesus Christ, right? We know that when we put faith in God, it may not feel good, but we know there is an other place to go on this other side of the situation. Like, there's more on the other side. Like, right now, it's painful. It's hurting. These people are not, I thought were my friends. They're not my friends, but I'm going to be faithful to show them what God wants me to show them, because on the other side, maybe I'll understand better. And most likely you're not going to in the midst of it. I'd like to tell you that you're going to get reason. That's why I love the people that I have in my life. Countless times over the last 9 to 10 years, I would call, Bobby and I would have a weekly phone call about ministry. And I would be ready to go Saul on people. And he'd talk me off the cliff and vice versa. Like, all right, no, man, that's not what we need. Perspective. This is what's going on. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. It happened more times than we count. Now, Daniel's in on this with me, too. He's like, oh, hey, man, like, think about this perspective that talk me off of cliffs, vice versa. We kind of work through, because when we so are not thinking, we have to put the right people in our life that we trust. My wife the same way, more than countless times. And, it's funny how the people that know you the most respond to you. She knows exactly how to get me to get over things pretty quickly. And, most of the time she's like, suck it up, and it works. She is loving, but she's very direct with me, and I love it. It works for me, because I'm like, oh, I see. That's not helpful. But Saul's not listening to any of these people in his life. He's so consumed by this. So he brings Ahimelech in, and he starts questioning him. This is the thing that we're going to talk now about, an unjust punishment, verse 14. We talked about this already, right? Ahimelech reminds the king of how honorable David had been to him. He's like, and who among you, all your servants, is so faithful as David? Like, I don't understand, Saul. David has been amazing to you, right? Who is the king's son-in-law? He's actually related to you now, and captain over your bodyguard, and honored in your house. Is today the first time that I have inquired of God for him? No. He's like, of course I pray for David. I'm a priest, and and he's a part of your group here. Yeah, this guy's amazing. I don't understand why we're having this conversation. And he's kind of sharing this with the king. He's like, you gave your own daughter to this guy. Why are you not trusting in him? And he's sharing this with Saul. And he's like, no, this is not the first time. Let not the king impute anything to his servant or to all the house of my father, for your servant has known nothing of all this much or little. And he tries to plead with him like, look, I didn't know what was happening. You got to know that. And just kind of like what I just meant, if only we had people in our lives, much like Ahimelech's trying to do with Saul, that would remind us of what's good and true in our lives, that would remind us of where we should be focused, that would remind us about what's important, that would remind us about what matters. I find myself often, so my oldest daughter is in junior high, and there's a lot of, junior high is the worst years, I think, of life sometimes. I not for you, I hope, but for me, it was a mess, right? Not that it's gotten better, but it was a mess in junior high. And frequently in our conversations, I keep trying to help her see the bigger picture down the road. I'm like, okay, I know that's difficult. Yeah, friends are crazy, but think about this. And we often have conversations about what will happen down the road. I tell kids all the time, like, hey, this isn't going to be the only people you're ever going to know in your life. So if you get hurt by them, you got to forgive them. You got to move forward. And we keep having this thing, trying to reminding her and reminding each other to be focused on the bigger picture. Because while we do get hurt sometimes, there is a bigger thing happening in our lives other than our emotions and our feelings. And things that are bigger than that happening for us. And we try to walk through that together. And I'm grateful that she trusts me to have those conversations. Because I remember, I have relationships from when I was in high school, but honestly, I graduated with 550 people. I don't remember most of them. We've moved on. Relationships are different now. That doesn't mean I didn't care for them. I just don't know them now, right? And so that evolves continually. So we often think that the world we live in now is the only thing it's ever going to be, and this is it. And that's not the truth. God is still working and moving in our lives. So Saul then, he just doesn't buy it. So he authorizes Ahimelech's death and commands the guards to kill him. But the guards are like, nah, we're not going to do that. Because one, they're priests. And the guards are like, I'm not going to be a part of ending their lives. And so Saul does the next best thing. He's like, all right, Doeg, you do it. And so Doeg kills Ahimelech and 85 people on that day, then went to Nob and killed men, women, children, infants, ox, donkey, sheep. He killed them all because of one man's blind rage, because of one man's insecurities. And we don't think about that, but that is such a dangerous game to play when we react on our feelings more than what's true in front of us. This is the result we're seeing in Saul's life, is that he's responsible for all these deaths. And he's responsible for what's happened because he was consumed by what was happening in him, that he saw all those people's lives ended. And we know it was unfair. And we know it was untrue. When we are consumed by what's in us that's not healthy and it's not of God, it leads us every time away from him. It leads us every time in a dangerous place. Every time it's going to lead you further away. So we do see this, though, in verse 21. All right, let me read that. I don't think I finished that part. But one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar told David that Saul had killed the priest of the Lord. And David said to Abiathar, I knew on that day when Doeg the Edomite was there that he would surely tell Saul, I have occasioned the death of all the persons of your father's house. Stay with me and do not be afraid, for he who seeks my life seeks your life. With me you shall be in safekeeping. So Abiathar escapes to David, and it's possible, we don't know, that possibly Abiathar stayed back to stay at the altar while his dad was going before the king. I don't know that. So if that was the case, he'd have time to flee. So Abiathar flees, and he goes to David, and he tells him about what happened, and David's heart's just heavy here. So David takes the blame for being an accessory to their deaths, because remember, we talked about this, the consequences of his thing last chapter by not telling the truth is adding up here, because he deceived. And I'm not saying it's all on David, but it was a piece of this. And there's consequences to being disobedient to what God's asking us to do. And so Abiathar, or Ahimelech and all his family, minus Abiathar, are killed. I saw this quote from Tim Keller that I thought was interesting. Anger doesn't come out of nowhere. It's not an original emotion. In one degree or another, anger is our response to whatever endangers something we love. Now, the problem there is the things that we love are not always the things that we should be loving. And anger is a response from people encroaching on that very piece, the thing that's going to take away from that. Now, to be honest with you, there are a lot of things that I react to in anger. Right? Now, thankfully, the God has been gracious to me, and it's only for moments. But Saul's entire reaction is because he loves what he is doing as the king at this moment. He didn't initially start that way, but here he is. And he's scared to death that David's going to take that away from him. And this is a reaction, a lashing out. And there are really two main reasons why Saul could not see past his blind sin. First of all, he didn't feel sorrow for his sin. There was zero repentance in Saul's heart for his actions. He's walking along as if like he's doing nothing wrong. That's a dangerous place to be when we're not repentant to God about what we've done. Because here's the truth. We're all broken. It's okay. Not that we're broken, but it's true. We all know that. And when we're not repentant, it leads to these places because then we're kind of building up the sins in our life as if like they're good, like they're okay. Like, oh, that's all right. Repentance is the key of transformation in all of this, right? Because that's when we truly know who Jesus Christ is when we recognize the weight of our sin and that we can't carry it. Saul's acting as if like none of that matters to him. He's not repentant of anything he's doing, and it's leading him down this path. The second thing is he forgot to remember the love and the power of God. He forgot how far God would go to take care and love his people. He forgot how much God had done previously, not only in his own life, but in David's life for his glory. He forgot what God's doing. We forget oftentimes the power of our sovereign God and what Jesus Christ did for us. And when we're not repentant and we forget who God is, it leads us to all this mess that we create. Now, I'm not saying that it works all the time, but we keep coming back to recalibrating to the fact that, hey, I know I'm a sinner in need of God's grace, and I know he is good to give it to me. And when we put those two things together, it changes the way we respond in anger, and it changes the way that we respond in hate, and it changes these things. The blinders fall off because we realize what's going on around us. Have you ever got so angry at someone, let's say your family, but later on you realize what you had done to everyone else and just the weight of that? You ever done that? I've done that frequently. And I'm not even kidding when I tell the story. Yesterday, I had mopped all the floors in the house, and one of my kids dumped Gatorade all over the floor right after. And I know we're laughing because we've done that, but I'm serious. I was mad, and I acted in anger pretty quickly and pretty rashly. And I think I scared all of them. I'm confident that I scared all of them. And that's not what I wanted to do. Like I was like, are you kidding me? I just spent 25 minutes mopping that floor, and you literally pour. I mean, they didn't do it on purpose, but it was in the point. And so I remember after all of it cleared, pulling the one who did it aside like that. All right, let's pause for a second. I shouldn't have reacted. I felt the weight of what I did immediately. I felt the weight of how ridiculous it was that I yelled. That doesn't mean I'm a good guy and that it's good. I'm just saying it's clear when you start recognizing who you are as a failed person, who God is as a great God, and you look at the effects that you have on other people, it matters. It changes things. Now, we're good. My kids, this is not the last time I'm going to yell at them, and it's not the last time that we're going to forgive each other, but they know that I don't mean, and that makes it better. But I'm going to pursue trying to love them in a way that honors Christ, and they're going to pursue trying to love me in a way that honors Christ, and that's where we're going to go. But the key is I need and you need to feel sorrow for your sin. You need to feel the weight of that. But in that weight, you need to feel the joy and the glory of knowing that God wants to take that weight from you. You need to feel that as well, that's how good God is he sees those two things. When those two come together, it's a really beautiful relationship. It changes the way that we're able to forgive. I've seen families go their entire lives not forgiving each other over something. Entire lives. People are going to pass away and they're still hanging on to things that happened years ago, decades ago. I've watched this. One of the things in Manning, because we were an older church, I was a part of probably over 100 funerals. And I got to watch families in every single one of those scenarios, and I'm watching them, some of them with grace and sweetness, but some of them harboring things still in their hard to get over, and they're not willing to forgive, and they're going to go to their grave holding on to this. And I'm going to tell you right now, that kind of consumption is what's led Saul to this place, and it's the consumption that's going to lead us to places away from God. We have got to let those things go. We need to remember that we are broken, fallen people, and it is God's grace that we are here. When we allow our anger to build and get the best of us, it affects everything. But when we remember to be aware of the blinders that are on us, and we're able to set them off to the side, and we allow God to work in us in these things, we can see. Now, we do know that God, much like he did with Pharaoh, has given Saul some of these things for his greater glory. We see that. But I do think we can see in this that kind of blindness to our own actions is dangerous to be. And it's a dangerous place to be in. Regardless of whether you've been wronged or not, we need to walk with confidence and strength that the God we trust and know, the sovereign Lord of all things, is still working in us, and he's going to continue to work in us, and we're going to be okay. We're going to be able to move forward. We're going to be able to build. I don't want me or you to leave broken bridges all along the way to get there. I want to be able to mend these things. I want them to be strong and solid so that I can go back, and when we have to apologize and forgive each other, we can still do that. But oftentimes we're lighting matches along the way. We're just tossing them left and right and just blowing everything around us. Because honestly, the thing that we love the most in this world is ourselves. That's why that nature is in us. And we have to fight constantly to make it about what God is doing in our lives and not what we want in our lives. And we got to fight to keep those blinders off. Put the right people in your path. Put people among you that are going to help you see clearly. It's a shame to see what happened here with Ahimelech and his people. We do know that David's going to live, and he's going to make, not that he's going to make up for it, but this lesson right here, he learns. He carries the weight of what he did. We see that in Scripture, that it is heavy burdened on him, that he is the reason why this is a part of the reason why this has happened. And we can affect these things by just being faithful to let God have the weight of what we've got going on in our lives instead of affecting everyone along the way. And I want to encourage you with that this week, that as we move forward, we're careful to not be blinded by hate or blinded by anything, but to have a clear picture of what God is doing in our lives today and what he's going to do in our lives tomorrow and what he's going to do in our lives for the weeks to come.